Okay.
All right, are we ready?
Yes.
Yeah,
1, 2, 3. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a special episode of, well, it's not Chalkboard History. It's just a special episode of cool history stuff. So momentarily, you're going to get to see footage taken by yours truly, I believe in the spring of 2000. And I just thought it'd be really cool to kind of let everybody see it. I offer some modern narration with the old footage, but Jeff has been part of the BOFT crew now for a handful of months. We got some big news coming up in, well, it's not Christmas time, but you know, it'll be early 2025 news about the Franklin Civil War Roundtable. And that we're going to be taking a much more active role in it, and Jeff will be the handsome, pleasant face of the round table. We've got more battlefield reclamation projects. We've got the 160th anniversaries coming up. We've got a presidential election. By the time you're watching this, who knows who's going to be in charge. And so before you get to see the 24-year-old goods, what are your thoughts on, you haven't even seen the footage, so
I have not. No.
What are your thoughts on like how you remember the battlefield versus what it looks like, and you know, what the heck does all this mean, and why do we do this, and why is this important?
The Carter House is going to be one of the first, actually the second Civil War site that I probably visited as a kid. The first one was Stones River. And when I got hooked there, my dad, well, where's other places to go to? And we went to the Carter House. And
so you remember the gymnasium?
I do, yeah. And I remember as a kid,
like that's in this footage.
Yeah, and so even as a kid, I kind of liked cool old buildings. And then I would eventually learn that it's like, oh, that was very Art Deco style.
Okay, so when did you first see it? What year?
Oh, geez.
25 years ago.
Yeah, ballpark. Yeah.
So the footage you're going to see is probably how you first...
Yeah.
What you saw.
Yeah, because I remember that gymnasium, and I remember thinking that was a cool style architecture, and I found out later, like, oh, that's Art Deco. It's like the 30s and 40s kind of style. And so... at the time, I didn't associate that with being a part of the battlefield per se. As a kid, I thought, oh, it's just where the house is, the farm office, the smokehouse. Is like, how did so many people fit on this? And then we were trying to see the other side of the buildings to see the bolt, and you're like squeezing between these two buildings. And then I remember, like, when you walked up there was like that trailer that was on the other side, and there was always a dog that was barking there. And,
there always was too. You'd walk by from the other side of the fence.
Yeah.
You could always imagine he's like chained up somewhere angry all the time.
Yeah, so it was like, it was weird experience going to Stones River, and then it was like, oh, okay, not every battlefield is like this.
That's what I thought. I went to Shiloh and Stones River, and then I'd come to Franklin and be like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So good perspective. Hope y'all enjoy it. I mean, I enjoyed watching it. Years later, I'm just glad I shot it, because I think it's the only footage of the battlefield as it existed at that time that I've ever seen, because I was crazy enough to go from Rippa Villa to Carnton, to Rippa Villa to Carter House, and then I ended up at Carnton in the cemetery. So hope you all enjoy it. Thanks. Okay, so boom. All right, so let's get into this. This is really crazy even for me. Like, this is the battlefield at Spring Hill. So I'm close to the house, close to Rippa Villa. I was shooting north. There's 31. Now in fact, a number of those trees aren't even there today. So there's the road, and there's the barn, a few people visiting, there's the house. It is really wild to look at this, the old fence. It's really wild to look at this and think that this is almost 25 years ago. Yeah, the trees are just starting to leaf out. I usually always, even in the courtyard area, all those cherry trees they're so small. To think that all this time has passed, and then I look at the house, and the house looks the same, which is really weird to think that the house has stood there for now 170 years. So I don't think it was open. In fact, I'm pretty sure that the visitors who were there, as I recall, I didn't take a tour this day. Wait a second, you know what I just noticed? There's the fountain. There's no fountain there. Looks better without a fountain. We should remove that. Those boxwoods that are by the steps, we removed a bunch of boxwoods up front, but those weren't even there when we started managing 3 years ago. There's the big old sugar maple tree. The first thing I notice now as I look at this is the boxwoods are gone, but off in the distance on the other side of the road, so of course the General Motors plant was there at the time, but now that battery plant is kind of southeast of the house. Wow. Yeah, so this would have been, again, probably I think April or May of 2000, and Rippa Villa had opened to the public just a couple of years before. Wow, it doesn't look a whole lot different today, does it? So now I went to the Battlefield Park off of Kedron, and this had just been purchased a couple of years before I shot this. And check it out. There's no, I don't think I didn't pan far enough. So Murray County had already put out some interpretive markers. So I'm not sure how far up the hill that I walk, but I'm pretty certain when I get up top, I'm going to pan back down toward Kedron Road, and there's no strip mall there. So that little strip mall is where like Viking Pizza is today. In fact, I think there a place called Dolan's Bar used to be there, but there's no a gas station. So I was fascinated with this. When I was doing this, I was coming here to get a sense of like the terrain, because I was working on it. Oh, there I am. Look, filming with my handy dandy little camera. Because I was trying to understand what happened at Spring Hill. The Battle of Spring Hill, and how did the federal troops attack? And for me, topography and being in these places was hugely important. So now I'm up at the top of the hill. There's the cannon. Look at that. There's no Reserve Boulevard. There's no strip mall. Wow. It's Saturn Parkway is there. But yeah, look at that. It was open. And I remember on a subsequent visit, it couldn't have been more than a year, 2 years, 3 years after this, all of a sudden there was a strip mall down there. There's Jack Weaver's house, the little red house. Jack still lives there. He's the guy that sold all this land to the Civil War Trust. Gosh, if Jack hadn't sold this land, it would have all been lost to development. So now I'm kind of up on the north side of what was long called Weaver Hill. Luther Bradley's brigade is directly ahead. Bradley's brigade gets caved in by Claiborne's troops. Now, fast forward, now I'm in Franklin. So now I'm standing on Winstead Hill. And Tractor Supply is there. But I noticed right away the trees are so much shorter. You don't even have this view today. The markers down there at the bottom were the markers to 5 of the Confederate generals. When I first visited Franklin, there was a Claiborne marker up there, but the other 5 were put in at later dates. So now I'm zooming in on Columbia Avenue. So Carter House is just about where the road disappears, is close to where Wagner's men were positioned. And Carter House is kind of masked in the trees there to the kind of left center. The thing I noticed when I first looked at this a few months back when I found this was when you stand up on Winstead Hill today, of course you're looking down toward like the target, and that wasn't there in that footage. This was crazy. This is heart of the battlefield. It's the old Battleground Academy campus, but there's no library. The county library wasn't here. The county library doesn't get built till like 2004. So we're looking north. That's Columbia Avenue. Now I'm panning east. So Carnton would be kind of almost directly ahead, about a mile. Now I'm panning back to the north. And as I start walking, this was the footage I think that hopefully everyone enjoys, because this was... I was doing this, I had to remind myself, I was simply documenting this visit and documenting the battlefield as it existed, which had been completely covered up, lost. Nobody was really visiting, nobody was really talking about Franklin. This is before there was a Franklin's Charge, this is before Widow of the South, before the Battle of Franklin Trust. I mean, I was still living in Arizona, obviously. And right ahead is where, so kind of ahead and then to the left, I think I actually pan a little bit to the left, is where the library was built. And the library's construction was really a watershed moment, because it was built like right in the heart of the battlefield, and it galvanized locals to band together and I think try and save, what little was left. Here it comes. This is really something else. Straight ahead, you can see the Williams house, which has now been purchased and is about to be demoed. Look at this. Look at the vehicles. They're so dated now. You can tell it was a long time ago. There was the Pizza Hut. There's the Domino's. So for any of you watching who've heard about the infamous Pizza Hut, or what we've done over the last years, you're going to get to see. You're not only going to get to see what it looked like, you're going to get to see. It really looked like crap. I mean, there was just, all this stuff was built on the battlefield in the early 20th century, the mid 20th century. I mean, I think that Domino's and Pizza Hut were probably built in the 70s and maybe even the 80s. Here it comes. I don't even need to provide commentary. If you know what it looks like today. Oh, see, there's where the library is today. I think those are old tennis courts that were on the backside of BGA. Today, straight ahead across, that's Granbury Street right ahead. There's an office building which stands behind the White House. There's the Williams house. There it is. Pat Claiborne fell just on the other side of where that building once stood. Today, where Claiborne fell is marked by an interpretive marker. There it is. That building was torn down on November 30th, 2005. That kind of started everything. That was the first piece that was reclaimed. And there's what we called the Fudge House in the distance. Had these like cut stones that had been slapped onto it. There's a marker for the old Carter cotton gin. Looking down Claiborne Street. Oh, that's terrible footage of like a bush. There it is. So, there's one of the old general's markers. That I think was General Carter. So there's the little ceramic shop, little house right to the left. We already bought that. That's gone now. Williams house, we just passed it. That's going to be gone soon. I remember going in that house and negotiating the deal with the ladies that owned it. There's General Gist. Even though that's never where he fell, that's where they put a post up. Now we're getting really close to Carter House, really close to where the federal line was. There's the strip mall. There's the Holt House in the distance. My gosh. There's the DePriest building. $5 million. We're going to close on that next month, right before the anniversary of the battle. There's Strahl Street. See that little concrete, that stone marker? That was put up, I think, about 1950 or 1960 to roughly mark where the federal line was. So now I'm going to cross Strahl Street. See, we're about 150 feet from the Carter House, and you still can't see it. That's looking back south. that strip mall was torn down on, I believe, no, look at, on November 30th, I think 2014. For those of you who don't remember the old days and payphones, there's one right there. I think you'll see it. It's a blue, you see a blue panel. It's like an old AT&T or US West phone. I think at some point I walk to the east side of the pike. But so here's a huge reclamation victory. So the house right there and the one next to it, I'm spinning around, it's Columbia Avenue and Strahl. So we bought that tract right there, $2.8 million for 1.6 acres. And we bought that about 10 years ago. That so completely transformed the battlefield, and I don't know what I'm pointing at, except maybe that's where the federal line angles back to the northwest. That's a really great look at the topography, even though it's all built up. You know, I was trying to get a flavor for the Confederate assault and you know where the federal line, why the federal line was located where it was. It was so hard to even imagine that this, you know, unbelievably violent battle had taken place. I mean, you can see that it was completely covered up. The federal line was just inside that fence. Years later, when we did the archaeological dig, we found it right there. Found it right there, at least that part of it. Oh, here it is. So I'm going to go across the street, run fast, don't get hit. There's the old payphone. New sidewalk. That's gone. It's all green space now. It's all part of the park. Oh, and we're going to be able to tear that building, that long one, to be able to clear that out. That's the last, like, real blight in this particular area. Oh my gosh. I know I'm walking over here so that I could, you know, have this footage, but I do remember on an earlier visit, I had walked over to this general area where so much bloodshed had occurred, where at least 2 of the Confederate generals fell, where hundreds and hundreds of Claiborne's men fell, where the federal troops were busted up and knocked back, but held on, the fighting that raged around the cotton gin. And I remember turning around and looking back toward Carter House, and you couldn't even see it. And I don't believe in ghosts or anything like that, but I will never forget, and it was right in this area, that there was something about, Carter Gin House. There was something that was familiar about this place to me, and I can't even tell you what that means. There was a moment where I felt like I'd been there. And I mean, I think I had visited once before, but there was just something about it that I never really felt anywhere else. And I looked around like I'm doing here. Look at that. You can't see Carter House. And today, if you stand in that exact spot, you can see Carter House, the farm office, the smokehouse. You can see the battlefield. And I just remember standing there and actually being a little bit somewhere between being angry and sad. You know, that this had happened. The dogwoods are in bloom, so you can definitely tell I'm there in the spring. So now I'm looking down Claiborne toward Adams Street, which cuts across it diagonally. John Adams led his Mississippi troops kind of out of that low ground, moving from right to left, slamming into the federal line that kind of angles behind that line of houses. I mean, look at all this mess. It always come behind the Domino's and this little strip mall. There was usually a dumpster or two back there, and it always was gross, foul smelling ugliness. And that's where I would gravitate, probably toward being a little bit angry. And I thought, how did people let this happen? How did they let this incredible place be completely covered up? And now to see it open, to see it as a park, to see it as a historic site, to see battlefield tours on it every day. I can now look back on this with some sense of nostalgia. It doesn't frustrate me anymore. It's wonderful to see it gone. And actually, this is the first time I've watched this thing straight through. I watched bits and pieces of it, but I know I haven't watched it all the way through. Oh my God, there's a building back there. I forgot that was even back behind the ceramic shop. Off in the, like a little shed back there. That wasn't there when we bought that property. Anyways, I think it's the first time I've actually watched it all the way through since I shot it. Or maybe since I got home and watched it maybe once. Probably forced my wife or kids to suffer through it. They're like, oh my God, it's so boring. There's General Adams's marker. There's a funny one. They put these posts up. I remember when the posts weren't there, so they were pretty new around the time I was shooting this. And I just remember thinking, why would they put General Adams's post on the side of the road? Like he wasn't killed anywhere near here. We took those posts down probably 6 or 7 years ago. We caught all sorts of hell from the Confederate heritage groups. They were claiming that we were destroying history. And I was like, no, we're not. We're just taking down silly posts that all they do is confuse people. Look at that. Look at those cars. Look at those little tiny import cars that everybody was driving back then. Now all the little Nissans and Hondas are all so much larger. Also, seems like a lot more people were driving cars and a few trucks. No real SUVs. You know, they're all the rage today. Anyways, back to the battlefield. Oh, look at all this. Finally, you can see the Carter House. You can finally see a window. Oh, first though, you have to look at a Franklin Flower Shop sign. Let's remind everyone, here's where you can buy flowers, right on the battlefield where thousands of Americans, north and south, gave their lives. Ugh. Look, there's General Straw, right by the Carter House mailbox. Another example of he didn't fall there. Oh, there's the Carter House. Look at the old door with the yellow inlay. Oh, there's the gymnasium. You can see the gym right behind the house. Just kind of peeping around behind the corner. First thing, if you've seen the Carter House in recent years, notice we took a lot of these trees down. And we didn't cut them down because we hate trees, but some of these were real dangers to some of the historic buildings, like these ones that were really close to the farm office and the smokehouse. The kitchen. There's the visitor center. We're going to tear that thing down soon. That'll be part of history soon. I can tell by the sunlight glinting. I was doing this in the afternoon because the sun's actually not on the eastern side of the sky. It's on the western side. Notice what's also... I picked this up when I watched it. There's no people. There are no visitors. There's the farm office when it used to be red. Look how close the flower shop was. There's the old salt trough out front of the smokehouse. But no visitors. This is April or May. I think it's April. No visitors. Nobody. Can't find a soul. That's what it used to be like. And now we have 40,000 people a year at Carter House and close to 60 at Carnton. It wasn't like that. Used to be, just a few wayward souls like me that were wandering around. Bullet holes, still there. Been there for 160 years. It's so strange. I'm taking footage of this, and now I see them every day, and in some ways, I barely even notice them. They're just so much part of what I do day to day. There's the old there's the gymnasium. I hope I come around the kitchen just far enough that, for those of you who never saw it, yes, we must look at all the bullet holes and the bullet strikes. Oh, there it is. Oh, come on. I guess I probably don't. Not wanting to shoot the... look at the wall. There used to be this terrible, ridiculous wall that was set up next to one of the cannons. There's the old horsey hitching post that was... There's the National Historic Landmark plaque that used to just... It was, positioned there on the ground outside the farm office, which was not open to the public. We restored that building and opened it up for everyone to see in 2017. Gosh, we're almost to the end and I haven't even gotten to Carnton yet. You can see from, even though I started working at Carnton, so much of my focus for what I was, at least the purposes of this, was to document the Carter house. There was a walnut tree. We cut that down 2009, 2010. Look at this. The building still looks the same. Tree's gone. I'm almost backed up against the flower shop. It's literally right behind me. That tree, that hackberry tree, we cut that down too. After we tore the flower shop down. I remember when the city guys came out and helped me cut that down in 2017. Oh, wow. Carnton. Standing between the modern visitor center and the house looking west. I think during this visit there were 2 or 3 or 4 people up by the house. That was it. They're the only tourists I saw. Look at the old path. There's a donation box. The old dirt path. No shutters on the house. This is when it does seem like it was 25 years ago. Look at the garden. It doesn't look like that now. Now I'm in the cemetery looking back toward the house. The cemetery is actually the timeless piece. It doesn't look any different. Cemeteries looked like that for almost 160 years. Ugh, and there it is, the Franklin Country Club golf course. Ugh, that was huge. That 110 acres. You can see all the vehicles. They used to play golf and tennis, carry on over there. That was a huge victory. So wow, that's 25 years ago. It looks a lot different today. Kind of an appropriate ending. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. That's kind of a trip down memory lane. So hopefully you did enjoy it. Come out and see us. Come out and see us as we celebrate and commemorate and remember what happened 160 years ago and how hard we've worked over the last 25 years to save of the battlefield what we can. Thanks.